You're getting my hosting smile going. Hello and welcome to another edition of Tech Deck Karaoke. This week we are extremely excited to be joined by Dustin Holst. He is the CEO of Neoteric Technologies, and he also once had the distinct privilege of interviewing me for a job. Dustin, welcome.
Thank you, Joe. It's great to be here, and that is absolutely true. I'm glad to say that ended well.
No accounting for bad taste.
That was the first time I was a Joe Onisick believer. Hasn't stopped since. So.
And we have another Joe Onisick believer barking in the background.
Yeah, he agrees.
Big fan there.
He agrees.
Those chipmunks will never get away. And Miss Schaefer, welcome.
Hello, hello. I am very excited for this one. Dustin, great to see you.
Great to see you too, Sabrina.
All right. Well, if we are all ready, I believe you brought some slides that I've never seen that I'm supposed to act like an expert on.
That is true. And for the record, I mean, prior to us starting the recording, we couldn't even get these things sent over to you. So I'm actually going to be presenting them and sharing them. So you literally have not seen these yet. And Sabrina, you can attest to this, correct?
I attest to it. Absolutely. Joe has not seen, I get that question. Like, there's no way Joe hasn't seen these slides. And I promise you, he really is presenting these on the fly. And that is the case here today as well. So I am very excited for what you have in store for us.
BS is my only talent, and I embrace it wholeheartedly. All right, Mr. Holt, since I don't have these slides, would you mind bringing them up and we will kick this thing off?
Sure thing.
So welcome to this presentation. One button to rule them all. Effortless, automated, zero trust infrastructure. So we've got a lot going on in this conversation. We're going to start off with kind of breaking those down a little bit before we get in. When we're talking about effortless automation, what we're really wanting to look at is how can we alleviate the operational overhead from your teams? How can we build in automated systems that don't require a bunch more troubleshooting, complexity, or architectural concerns, but instead alleviate some of that work that they're doing on their day-to-day so that they can focus on more important tasks? We're also in this going to be talking a lot about zero trust infrastructure. Zero trust is a big buzzword in the security space. What we're really talking about when we talk about zero trust is something more akin to least privilege access. How can we ensure that we're not providing default trust and that we're checking every access, every intent, every time when we're deploying or accessing a system? And so with that, Dustin, if you'd click forward, we will go ahead and see what comes up next in this slide deck. I am your featured speaker. I am Joe Onisick. I'm a deep thinker. I'm a hairstyle magazine cover model, and I'm a principal co-founder of Transformation Continuum, which is really kind of last on that list. Hair modeling hairstyling and modeling is really my passion. It's the root of what gets me up in the morning. And with hair like you see in that photo, or even like this, you know that I'm passionate about hair.
Great job, Sabrina. I mean, you've been into these hair salons and there's magazines, especially in the men's, and you open them up, look for different things you might want to do. Is that not the picture you would see in there?
That's the picture. And then there's always this side angle where you can see the fade. Yeah. Oh no, I know exactly what look you're going. And the books are always from like 1995, aren't they? And they're like a little bit dated.
Yeah, exactly. Like this hairstyle.
Yeah. Basically everything about me peaked in 95. So that all tracks. Fun fact about this hairstyle: during one of my many midlife crises, in one of those, I went and bought a motorcycle. And so after getting a learner's permit and buying a super bike as the bike to learn on, I went to my hair guy, and said, Jay, I'm going to be wearing motorcycle helmets a lot. Give me a haircut that looks the same when it goes in as it does when it comes out. And that's what he got me.
Yeah.
It's very impressive.
Now we know the story. Now we know.
So a little bit about Joe. I'm a former Marine, a successful MEPS test of head fitting in a jar. So MEPS is it's kind of the medical and evaluation that you go through when you're joining the military. And as a Marine, they have to ensure that we can fit our heads into the appropriate jar for protection, mainly from ourselves. I may or may not be responsible for Twitter instituting banning, right? I have a long and sordid history with Twitter, and in most cases in my life, I am the cause of new restrictive policies. Twitter is no different. I drive fast, I think fast, and I am a living example of fail fast. We have talked about this in other episodes, but I take failure seriously. I'm also a loyal friend and smarter than I sound, which was the paid comment Dustin threw in here for us. His check is in the mail. And the slides say so. Brilliant.
Nicely done.
All right. So digital transformation is driving change. We are moving into yet another buzzword. What are we talking about when we talk about digital transformation? So one of my first jobs at 17, full-time IT employee, was literally moving analog voice dictation for hospitals onto digital voice dictation. That was a true digital transformation, moving from an analog legacy system onto a digital modern compute system. Now, in modern day, when we're talking about digital transformation, what we're really looking at is moving the digital transformation we've done for the IT and business core out to the lines of business. We're looking at how IT can enable lines of business and drive new revenue streams. This is anything from using Wi-Fi and locality to track shoppers on a retail floor to better place items for highest profitability, all the way through automating business processes so that we can alleviate the overall workload on our staff and have them chasing the new things that the business is driving. So digital transformation in today's world is really just a revamp, modernization, and application to the business of how we look at digital. So we've taken a shift to the cloud, moving many, many workloads to the cloud, and you can go out and pick any number you want, but the stats are all the same. We heavily use public cloud, and in many cases, heavily use public cloud integrated in some way with traditional IT models. We've had a huge growth of DevOps or agile, basically faster development processes. How can we iterate on software more quickly, not wait on long, lengthy, and large release cycles, and be able to address business changes really quick? One of my favorite examples of this is Netflix with that skip intro button we all love. Somebody came up with that idea. It was quickly implemented, and then it was able to be pushed out to select test markets on production platforms to ensure it worked, ensure it was liked before a large rollout. That's what DevOps enables. We've got the containerization and the idea of microservices that come with it. This is really an evolution of the virtual machine idea that we rolled out 10, 15 years ago, and Dustin and I were a big piece of that at that time. What we were looking at is breaking up these large monolithic apps and being able to distribute them a little better, move them a little faster, automate them with more efficiency. Microservices takes that to another level. How small can we get the component of an application that needs to be spun up, adapted, changed, respun up, or scaled out? So we break up our applications into smaller and smaller components called microservices, throw those in containers. We also, from all of this, have a huge increase in complexity, more moving parts, more moving systems, more integration. All of this creates a challenge, especially from an operational model, but also from what we're going to tie into our next bullet in cybersecurity. More complexity is more risk, more security risk. So cybersecurity is running these missions. They're trying to run this mission that they were already struggling with on premises, now in PaaS and SaaS and infrastructure as a service environments. So this is the world we live in. This is where we sit today. And with that, let's take a look at whatever this next slide is going to tell us to take a look at. It's going to tell us to take a look at a single unifying platform to digitize your work. And so when we look at that, ServiceNow is a key platform that does this. ServiceNow, to me, really brings the business operation and ties it directly into the IT operation when properly deployed, implemented, and rolled out. It allows us to automate business process through IT infrastructure to get that agility we're looking at. We can optimize it. We can connect silos seamlessly so that we can have automated integration between teams that may not integrate directly. And then we can create new value, enabling innovative business practices, and do so extremely rapidly. But the key to this is truly the use and adoption of the platform. So one of the things we'll want to talk about as we talk about platforms like ServiceNow is it's not about purchasing it, getting the licensing and getting it rolled out. The next step is really figuring out how to embrace it within your organization. How do we see where ServiceNow can serve us and then implement those details? So as we look at this world of DevOps, and it's in the middle stages of its maturity, as it continues to develop and mature, what we're seeing is that developers have more tools to work with on any given project, but also that developers are very much more involved today in the purchase and acquisition of those tools. They have a bigger say in it. They have more things to integrate. They have more choices at hand, and they also have more power. But as this comes together, how do we integrate all those tools to create a seamless IT operation? Because again, as we add tools, we have the ability to bring on complexity and risk with that. So we need a way to glue these together and glue these together with a business lens. And when I talk about a business lens is going to use words like governance and compliance and risk management. And that's one place where things like GitLab and ServiceNow can come together to begin to implement that governance in your deployment process while still allowing your developers to move quickly. So GitLab can be considered the one DevOps platform for software innovation. So we're all familiar with GitHub and the code repository and the code refinement that you can get with that. GitLab expands upon that with source code management, continuous integration, infrastructure as a code, vulnerability scanning, and several other features that are really focused on the life cycle of developing code and the ability to take in business, developer, security, and operation inputs into a single interface with a unified data model to be able to deliver out the results your business is looking for from those software developers on your team. HashiCorp's another great example that fits into this space and has really grown in relevance rapidly through this DevOps transition. So we're familiar with the many products of HashiCorp like Terraform and the like. What HashiCorp is really doing is infrastructure automation that's focused on the way we live in this world today of multi-cloud. Now, multi-cloud comes in many shapes and forms. Some people hate multi-cloud. There are still cloud purists out there arguing for a pure public cloud world. But the reality is we have legacy architecture that we're going to care and feed for a long time. We have modern architecture that we may be deploying within the clouds, and we have a mix of this depending on what our business model is, how old our business is, and how we like to operate. So what we need to be able to do is begin to build infrastructure automation across these with an agnostic view of the underlying infrastructure, be it public or private. If I'm building a new operational model for every place my apps and services live, I'm building overhead, I'm building complexity, I'm building risk, and I'm building future pain every time I deploy an app. So by using tools like HashiCorp to automate infrastructure provisioning across multiple sources, I can begin to rein that in, create one IT governance and automation platform that can deploy my apps in the right location at the right time based on their requirements. We also get consistent workflows out of this. So when we look at tying these things together, HashiCorp's Terraform, HashiCorp's Vault, things like Console and Nomad, we can bring these together as modules of a consistent platform and drive workloads that are the same workload every time. So one of the things I like about this idea of consistent workflows for workload deployment or service deployment is that I can do things once and understand that if they're done right the first time, they'll be replicated each time I stamp out this workflow. So for instance, if I have very invasive compliance and security checks that need to go on when I'm deploying code, I can do those checks on the automation workflow, ensure that that automation workflow has the compliance it needs and the security it needs, deploy it a few times, test it out, have my security team pen test it. But once that workflow is certified, anytime I click that button to roll out that workflow, I can trust that that workflow is deployed securely. And I can even integrate things like security scanning for my code into that process to check for new and unknown vulnerabilities. So digital transformation is not simple, but it's also not something that you can ignore or something that you can't achieve. When we look at digital transformation, we really want to expand on what we're actually asking for. So let's use the example of a simple request for a cloud environment. What actually happens here? We've got a cloud team. They may be an AWS team, an Azure team, a GCP team, an OCI team, you name it. They're going to be moving through a dozen, if not more, steps to get a new infrastructure provisioned. Everything from security and application deployment, enterprise teams, help desk and support, through network engineering, database, customer execs, hundreds and hundreds of hours and tasks get involved here. But the interesting thing to note here is most of these tasks are defined and repetitive. If it's defined and repetitive, it can be automated. And even if it has simple changes, simple one-offs that go on, those can also be automated. So the more repetitive a task is, the easier it is to automate. And the more we automate these tasks, the more human error risk we remove. So as we begin to do this, you want to be looking at these automation stacks as a twofold advantage. I get faster or more agile IT operations, and I get risk reduction by deploying appropriate automation tools within my environment because I'm removing the human error that occurs with repetitive tasks. So Neoteric brings together a solution called One Button to Rule Them All. And the idea here really is taking your business requirements from the ServiceNow platform and using them to automate workflows that on the back end call all of those different tools we talked about your developers having in order to deploy solutions, services, and applications into your environment so that your business can grow and thrive in an agile fashion. So it's a powerful solution that's fully customized to what you can do. And more importantly, it's really a proof of the value of automation within your environment and how that automation can be tied to your business processes like governance and compliance. You can keep clicking through bullets. I'm just going to ignore the ones I don't understand, which is all of them, right? So when we're looking at this, there's some key points that I do want to cover here, all jokes aside. For instance, automated vulnerability scans for a secure app delivery. When we look at that, what are we talking about? Well, when we deploy code, there are things we do that we know add vulnerabilities, right? Things like plain text secrets deployed within the code. Think of secrets almost like passwords, right? So if I'm putting those in the code and somebody gets access to my code, they now have the password or that secret key. So there's things that we can look for that are big picture that can be automatically scanned as we deploy code. Especially in dev test environments, you will often see people using things like secret keys to put in plain text because they're just testing real quick. It's a test environment. It doesn't matter. But when that translates over to production, it becomes a big problem. So what we can do with automated testing ties into everything we've talked about here. I can check for those plain text secrets as an example, but I can also let you know this secret should actually be coming from HashiCorp Vault or some other service that you're using to manage those secrets. What we get from this and the big picture of this is what the user experience is. When the business needs something done, they have a business set of terms that define that requirement. They can use those terms to define the requirement, push it through this one button to rule them all, ServiceNow tool chain that Neoteric builds, and that system gets deployed and they get notified when it's ready. On the back end, all of those hundreds, if not thousands of steps still occur, but they occur from a predefined templatized workflow that has been pre-vetted by your security, your network, your infrastructure, your server, your application teams. So all of those same checks and balances still occur. Approval workflows can still be kicked off, but the process is automated, standardized, and able to be deployed repeatedly across any infrastructure that you're using. So digital transformation can be achieved. And as a co-founder of a company that focuses on digital transformation, I hope I believe that garbage, right? One button to rule them all is taking this complex process and building it into an automated workflow tailored to your business requirements or mission requirements if you're working in that federal, that DoD or public sector space. So who is Neoteric? Neoteric is a value-added reseller system integrator that is focused on digital transformation, focused on helping your IT stack meet that business critical requirement, helping you transform. This is not your traditional, I know I need a network box, so I call Dustin and his team. This is, I have a problem to solve in my business that is technology related. Let me call Dustin and see how we can solve this by looking at what's out there today, both in the traditional vendors and in the cutting edge vendors, and then apply the services, the training, the consulting around that solution to make sure that the rubber hits the road and I can adopt that solution and create success. Some strategic partners here, and this is not a comprehensive list of partners. This is instead a list of some strategic partners that are applicable to the conversation we had right here. We mentioned them: ServiceNow, HashiCorp, and GitLab across cloud, cybersecurity, software deployment, and services and consulting. These are three of those core partners, and they're core partners because they are applicable and relevant in this modern world of building automated tool chains. We also want to discuss a little bit about where the rubber hits the road with ServiceNow. So ServiceNow is extremely widely deployed, widely loved by the customers that use it. But there are also, like with any software, many customers around the globe who have ServiceNow deployed and haven't yet figured out how to truly embrace it and get the value out of it. So in the work Dustin and his team have been doing throughout their customer base, they've found a lot of these customers that really just need a little more hand-holding to get that ServiceNow implementation up to snuff to be able to drive the value that they originally purchased it for. The idea here is we have to be able to go in and figure out which processes need to be automated and what they look like today before we can bring them into that platform and turn them into workflows. And so the team has developed a series of administration as a service for ServiceNow offerings that can help enable your team and more rapidly grow that ServiceNow practice so that you're getting the true value that that platform offers. Oh. And they do a lot of this first in their innovation labs. So their team is going to kick the tires on these solutions first. Their team is going to make sure these integrations work. Their team is going to develop these solutions and then be able to demonstrate or prove the value out to you in their lab before you go down to that undertaking. The beauty of this is everything works in PowerPoint. I've never had a PowerPoint slide fail on me, but production is a different world. So this gives you the ability to go in and see that your solution works, built by Dustin's experts in Neoteric's innovation labs before making a purchase or deployment decision. That's all I got. I know I just nailed that. There's no way Dustin will be able to present his slides better. Thank you very much.
I wouldn't be able to disagree with that last statement anymore. Sabrina, I think we should just end this recording.
Don't say that. No,
I know Joe is.
You.
I haven't watched all of these, but Joe has technically never won one of these, correct?
I have not.
That is correct.
This could be the pivotal inflection point of this whole Tech Deck Karaoke series. I didn't bring my real big guns to the fight here. I don't even know if he was BSing or not. You're right. Like some of the things he was saying, I was like, man, I hope that's true. It sounded good, but my technical guys would probably be able to correct that or confirm it. I don't know which one, but I don't know. I'm going to give the CEO version of this, I guess, and it's probably not going to sound as smart. So any additional votes that you can conjure up for me would be greatly appreciated. But I might just throw in the towel before I even start.
You can't, don't be one of those, he's not as smart as he looks.
But he's smarter than he sounds, and he sounded pretty smart. I'm a little intimidated, but I will give it my best shot.
I feel bad for your team because you're going to go back to your team today and go, I didn't know we can do this. Why didn't you tell me we can do
why do you guys tell me? Or I go back to them, they're like, that guy has no idea what he's talking about. He did a bunch of word salad and, where's a donuts hat? Just don't worry about it, right? I don't know.
Okay. All right, Dustin, tell us how it really is.
I got to go all the way back. So do I just hit back?
That's back.
Back.
That's right.
All right. Let's see if I can.
It's like a duck in reverse.
All right. Well, I'm not going to go over these two slides unless you want me to.
No. We know enough about Joe for a lifetime, really.
Too much, some might say. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, this may sound oddly familiar, what you just heard, but I do want to say that digital transformation is absolutely at the pinnacle of every business. Every business has become an IT company at this point. There is no such thing as a manufacturing company or a healthcare company. Every business has become an IT company. How they are delivering services and products and solutions to their customers is requiring a significant amount of investment tied to digital transformation to compete in the marketplace, to deliver better products and services to their customers. So everybody gets this idea, and every CIO out there, that we've got to look at all options, right? And so the biggest option over the last 5 to call it 10 years is how do we save money and do things more efficiently and faster? Hey, why don't we shift to the cloud, right? So all the big players out there, Amazons and the Microsofts and the Googles and the IBMs, have invested billions and billions of dollars creating these cloud environments for customers to come right in and do your digital transformation here. But it doesn't come without a cost. So this spend that a lot of businesses, both large and small and of all sizes and shapes, have been allocating a lot of their budgets now to those big players out there. And the human part of this, or the people part of this, all of the man hours that it takes to really transform from on-prem into the cloud for this whole idea of saving money and doing things more efficiently has cost a lot of money. So there's a lot of hidden cost in that 47% of budget allocations, both on the subscription side and the human capital side. So as this transformation has been going on and continues to go on, these monolithic legacy applications that a lot of these companies and even federal agencies have developed that have been servicing their customers and providing products and solutions, they don't really fit in the cloud anymore, and or they need to be modernized to keep up with the competitive landscape that's out there. So 80% of all organizations are now moving into hiring a lot of developers, right? And so these terms like DevOps or DevSecOps have become wildly familiar to a lot of CIOs and a lot of organizations that are now trying to become IT organizations, even though they may not be an IT company. So there's a lot of growth in this idea of modernizing legacy applications, throwing developers at it with this DevOps or DevSecOps mentality. This containerization of microservices, as Joe mentioned, used to be called VMware or VMs, and then Hyper-V by Microsoft. But what we're now seeing in this cloud infrastructure with those major players are out there, they're offering the ability to do this natively in their environments, but it's also costing a lot of additional resources, time, money of all sizes and shapes to really get a handle on, now that these monolithic apps that were divided up into chunks for all the right reasons, well, now it's increased this complexity of finding out where this one app used to be. It's now split into 50 different instances or cloud environments. So the complexity that's come with that is also kind of shifted into this. I used to have one app and one tool and one pane of glass to look at my environment. Now I have 800 tools and I have no visibility across my environment. So it's really gotten out of control in terms of the stovepipes and the amount of tools that customers and agencies of all sizes and shapes have put in. And then you've got the security side of this, right? As Joe mentioned, this has become extremely difficult for all sizes and shapes of companies and CISOs that are out there trying to protect what used to be the boundary. But now you've also got insider threats. You've got all these microservices. You've got all these developers. You've got all these new people that have entered the landscape as part of this digital transformation. And not that there's anybody trying to do bad things most of the time, but there's a lot of vulnerabilities that come when you are no longer creating one app with one team. You're doing it with multiple teams, multiple contractors in multiple places. So it's become quite a headache. So what does ServiceNow do for that? ServiceNow offers you the ability to go out and discover, number one, all of these different areas and platforms that you're now living in, whether that be an Amazon or IBM or whatever it might be. And what it does is it gives you this single platform to really get a handle on optimizing a lot of the processes that are now going on that used to be in one data center with one team. It also gives the ability for teams to connect within the platform, but it also gives them the ability to connect data together and workflows together, which are happening too often in these silos. Then finally, they have enabled and created new value for these companies that didn't think of themselves 5-10 years ago as IT companies, but ServiceNow allows any company of any offering that they're built to do become an IT company by allowing innovation and real business value to them by using their platform and the power of their platform. So we talked about DevOps and how many developers are now living in different companies, right? That never used to have big DevOps teams. Well, GitLab is a very strategic partner in this process for all these developers from, again, all various backgrounds, right? Whether they were a C++ developer, a Java developer, an HTML developer, the list goes on and on. What GitLab does is now offer a centralized platform for all developers of all backgrounds to really come in and plan, to have one centralized place for source code. All of these different applications that are being migrated from on-prem to the cloud and modernized at the same time gets very, very crazy when you have developer A, B, and C all using their own bring your own development, tool, right? So this really minimizes a lot of the risk, but also expedites a lot of the efficiencies in getting applications to the cloud at the same time by modernizing them from the legacy applications that they were. One of the things that is bolded on here is infrastructure as code vulnerability scanning. And where you're going to see this fit into this one button to rule solution is another, I call it hidden gem of the GitLab solution as part of this, right? It's a very powerful platform, just as ServiceNow is. But there are some very, very unique things that GitLab does around scanning for those vulnerabilities before you deploy code, even if it's infrastructure as code that's going to eventually end up in your cloud environment. So again, GitLab is the one DevOps platform that we have strategically aligned with and partnered with. I think they're best in class, best in breed, gives companies and agencies, again, big or small, the ability to bring all of their developers onto one platform, and they seamlessly work together very well with ServiceNow. But there's another company out there that's gotten a lot of fanfare, went IPO, I think, in the last 18 months and did very well. They were known and just like GitLab, brought up in the world of open source, just like GitLab was, right? And the reason I think open source, companies that are now public and have kind of wrapped all of their former open source things into now enterprise offerings is because you get the best of the best out there from the world and the community that are looking at these challenges that every company faces, to include provisioning into this multi-cloud environment. If AWS, and I'm not using them as the example here, but just as a random example, if AWS isn't cutting the cake for you anymore and you want to move your workloads over to Microsoft or name another cloud, that was very, very difficult and still is, unless you have a team and a set of tools that know how to seamlessly migrate an application. We used to call this cloud hopping. I don't know what it's called anymore, but that was almost, you would get cloud locked back in the day. HashiCorp, with their Terraform product, again, developed in the open source community, looked at how to solve that problem, went IPO with it, made it an enterprise tool, put a lot of new features into this that make this really seamless. But the real power of Hashi is they are looking at not only the provisioning piece, but very important piece of moving to the cloud, and that's the networking piece, the security piece, and that application piece. So if you think about what we've talked about with ServiceNow, with GitLab, and with Hashi, this is truly a better together story when you're trying to tackle all the multifaceted issues that companies and organizations are facing in this digital transformation journey. Consistent workflows are very huge. As Joe mentioned, there are a lot of repeatable, a lot of very similar processes that are done by siloed teams that still exist. But putting all of that into consistent workflows from the provisioning team, then goes over to the 3 cubes left. I guess this is pre-COVID times because nobody works in the office anymore. But going over 3 cubes to the left and going to your security team, going to your networking team, all of these different things need to happen, but can happen automatically in automated fashion now that we have these tools like Terraform, Vault, and Console. So we wanted to bring the best of what we thought from a Neoteric standpoint best of breed on all of the different pieces in this digital transformation process. This process is not simple. It's harder than it seems. And if you don't tie all of the tool sets together as one unified solution, you're going to be stuck in this constant battering ram of one team. And this is harder now, I would argue, in COVID times and in this remote workforce times, because again, not everybody's in the office anymore. All of these folks are still working at home, but more siloed as ever, right? So they have to talk to each other. They have workflows they need to do, or tasks, I should say, that they need to do. And then goes one team. It sits there for a week until it's on their radar. It sits there for a couple of days. Meanwhile, the business is demanding that we get this thing done, or we get this new application up and running by this deadline. But a lot of these teams, unless they're all unified, working in a single unified platform or solution, it's going to take hours and hours, days, weeks. We've even seen months and years. And I know that's not uncommon for a lot of customers that are out there. So how do we solve for that problem with all the technologies we just talked about? Neoteric put together a solution, what we like to call one button to rule them all. A little bit of a play on Lord of the Rings. It was voted on, it won, I liked it. But one button to rule them all that really introduces a new powerful solution with products and solutions that a lot of our enterprise and larger customers already own. And that's the key here. A lot of our customers already own ServiceNow. They already own HashiCorp. They already own GitLab. But they're not utilizing them together to solve for those hours and days and weeks and months of challenges that they're having as part of their digital transformation. So what we want to do is introduce this idea and concept of a control tower. This would be ServiceNow. I can see everything on that proverbial one pane of glass, just like I used to be able to do in my monolithic legacy days before I ever got this bright idea of moving to the cloud, right? So I get that back now, but with a modernized control tower that can discover everything and sees everything, and really is the puppeteer behind the scenes on all of this automation that you're going to see in this solution. Around vulnerability scans for secure application delivery. As I mentioned, there's a lot, and Joe touched on this too, there's a lot of developers out there using different tools. But now with GitLab, if I can get my development team all on a unified development platform, one of the hidden little gems of GitLab is it can do real-time vulnerability scans for every piece of code that's written, as well as all the code that's going to essentially build out my cloud environment. That's all code, not application code, but code that can be written to do this automatically. And then finally, what if I had one button to click? And instead of that process that you saw that takes hours and weeks and days and months, what if I was the product owner at a customer? Heck, I could even be the CIO. And I could look to my left, look to my right, make sure the team's good. I hit a button. Within minutes, I can provision infrastructure knowing that it's got zero trust attributes tied to it all the way through. So what we developed in our labs at the behest of some of our large enterprise customers is we delivered this user experience to do just that. Somebody hits a button to deploy a new cloud environment for a new mission critical app for the federal government, or a new business critical app for some of our large enterprise commercial customers. And what happens behind the scenes isn't really seen at all. What we've done is we've tied all of these best of breed products together, integrated them together, starting with security first, right? In a true zero trust fashion, where we first look at all the code that needs to be provisioned to create an EC2 in AWS, or a VM in Azure, or whatever it might be in any of these cloud environments you see on the right. Whatever that is, that's code, but it needs to make sure that it's secure. Joe used an example, I'll use another one. So oftentimes our customers that are putting out customer-facing or public-facing applications, the developers themselves are working on that user experience, the UI, the UX, right? The functionality. Does this button work when I click it? But you're not often concerned about the code that's going to make it public-facing or private-facing. And I'm just using this as an example of what we've seen. Gets ready for release to production, and it may not be an application that was meant to be public-facing. It was internal only, right? But yet you see in the code when this thing goes, it's 0.0.0.0. That means essentially it's open to the world. And those little things, automated vulnerability scans with GitLab, working with Vault, can work through this process to basically create the instance, and it comes back within minutes, letting them know the system is ready, and customers can rest assured this thing is at zero trust. It's been tested and proven. I've got all the tools in place. And by the way, when I do that, I now hit that button with an automation, just as importantly, audit trails, which are all stored in that control tower called ServiceNow, and all these automated workflows with approvals, right? So ServiceNow allows approvals as well. So as I go down this chain, I now log into ServiceNow, or I get an email or a text, and I say, hey, I'm the cloud team. I need to get your approval, security team, to move forward. They hit approve. That goes to the application development team. You got an email or a text, I need to approve. So as long as it takes for people to do the approvals, check everything, that customer executive sponsor is the final approver. They hit go. One click of a button started all of this, and now we're talking about minutes instead of days, weeks, and months to now have my environments that are secure, built in a multi-cloud fashion, moving workloads from one cloud to another, all with a single click of a button, because we've wrapped all this into infrastructure as code, and we have a centralized platform to see it. So who is Neoteric? We're the company you want to call. We're the company you want to call because, to our knowledge, according to our strategic partners that I just mentioned, and we'll talk about on the next slide, have told us we are the first in industry to bring the three companies together to create this solution. What we want our customers to be able to do, though, is come in and evaluate this with this novel idea and concept. Try before you buy. Test this out. Give us your requirements. Our labs, which we're going to talk about, are all about taking these best of breed products from these partners. And again, this is not an all-inclusive list, but these are our strategic partners where we have the most expertise on the Neoteric side. And let's see what the art of possible is when we integrate best of breed solutions together versus look at them as just another one of 800 tools in my tool belt that does a thing. Oftentimes, when I use a quick example, ServiceNow, everybody knows about ServiceNow from a help desk. Oh, that's what I get when I call the help desk and I open up a trouble ticket. That's what ServiceNow is for. A lot of folks don't know how powerful these solutions are, especially when you tie them together for this better together story. What we've then done on the ServiceNow side, since it is the control tower and every customer has mostly ServiceNow, especially at the large and enterprise levels, is we find that so oftentimes within the ServiceNow side, even though it has, I think, over 2,700 or some big number of open APIs to all different types of things, the customers themselves don't know how to really push the ball forward and integrate with those. And it can take years, if not months, of training and certifications. And a lot of customers are saying, hey, you're the ServiceNow guy, go do it. And the ServiceNow guy or team says, I don't know, I'm gonna have to read documentation. So what we want to do with these types of solutions, especially the one button rule, is provide a new flavor, not called managed services, not called a 1-year statement of work with a period of performance that's going to lock a customer into either some sort of subscription or contract, but really this idea of where you can buy bucket of hours to have the SMEs come in and use them at different levels of what you need them to do, whether that be consulting or strategy and roadmap advice. We have consultants on staff that literally will talk to CISOs, CIOs, everybody in that chain that you saw of all those different things to really tie all this together, really from a ServiceNow perspective, but I would say also from this whole solution, HashiCorp, GitLab, how does this work? So we've come up with this ServiceNow administration as a service. It's very snazzy. That's why we like the name. And it gives customers a no risk, no long commitment way to get help, to get real value delivered to their business in a short amount of time. Finally, as Joe mentioned, I love the innovation labs. It's probably my biggest thing that I love to talk about. This is really set up for two reasons. Number one, customer ideas. Number two, customer requirements that come out as part of RFPs or RFIs. So what Neoteric likes to do is either work with a customer's idea, and there's no such thing as a bad idea for our innovation labs. But what we also like to do when we respond to customer RFPs or RFIs, we build a solution and show it as part of our response versus write about it. And like Joe said, everything can be done on PowerPoint or in a proposal. But when you show it, and you show these integrations working together and these solutions like one button rule and the value that they bring, that it's possible, not just theoretical. This is where our innovation labs, I think, give us a step up. So with that said, scan the QR code. It hits you to our website. Get us a workshop scheduled. These are free of charge. We'll do it virtually or in person. Let's sit down and talk. Let's figure out how we can do real digital transformation within minutes versus days, weeks, or years.
Very nice, Dustin. So
Right.
I definitely want Sabrina's opinion on this, but I think the main difference between your presentation and mine is that you sounded like you knew what you were talking about.
I would argue that. I would argue that you said a lot smarter things than I did. So again, you got the CEO version and you probably got the more technical version. So hey, for the audience who's actually going to watch this, they're going to get both sides of it, I hope. But you did great, Joe. I mean, seriously, you nailed it. And I swear he had not seen those slides. So I was very impressed.
I get the question every time, and I'm like, I promise you, he doesn't see him ahead of time. You know, I will admit that maybe Joe is adequate, maybe barely, a little bit. I could stomach most of it. I'll put it that way. But Dustin, you smoked him in a very good way. So sorry, Joe. I'm going to be very honest on this one. Usually I take it easy on you, but not today. No, I think it's another epic fail. It's a big L on the Joe side.
Ooh.
Yeah, Dustin, I'm going to give this one to you. I think you hit at the executive level. You talked about what real business problems are coming up. Obviously, the deck was great too. And Joe, you know, I'm just being hard on you. But Dustin, I think I give this one to you today.
Oh, Sabrina, I will humbly accept that, but I would say that Joe, yeah, even though you got the big L on this one, I think you did okay. You did great. Yeah.
Right.
You know, they call me Big L for a reason. You know, it's nothing new. Mr. Holtz, Miss Schaefer, thank you both so much for being here. And yeah, I'm gritting my teeth saying that to you, Sabrina, but true for you, Dustin. Thank you very much. This has been a great episode.
Thanks for having me so much. And God bless, Godspeed.
See you soon.
All right. See you soon.